real pleasure to be with Kalidas, who I've known for many, many years. And Chandigarh welcomes you, and your talk was very, very enlightening. I have had the good fortune to work with your wonderful father, Swaminathan, for 4 years in Bharat Bhavan. So my being with you is very special for me.
Very special being here too, Neelam, especially with you and in Chandigarh, and the Lalit Kala Akademi in Chandigarh and Diwan Manna have been great hosts, and it's a wonderful Amrita Sher-Gil week that they are putting up here, and we are all here for that. It's very good to be here.
I got to know that you're doing this huge retrospective of your fathers in November. There has been such an amazing trajectory of work that Swamiji has done, from his earlier works to his Bird and Mountain series, which made him the icon that he is, and his later work, which was influenced very much by the hieroglyphics of the Chhattisgarh region, which he toured and worked in intensively. How are you managing it, this huge arc of work?
Well, as you know, my father was not only an artist but a hugely political and social creature.
Yeah.
And apart from the actual paintings and drawings that he did, his role was also in making of art institutions and shaping of art policy and so on. So it's been quite a while. It's been already 5 years that I've been working with his papers and his archives. And when the National Gallery of Modern Art asked me to do this retrospective, I was hesitant, but it's been 5 years, and I feel that now I have some idea as to how to put this exhibition together. It'll not only be an exhibition of his works, but also a celebration of his life and ideas, and that perhaps will bring it greater diversity and meaning. Last year I did a small exhibition of just the first 20 years of his professional life, where he moves from being a full-time political activist to a full-time painter, which I call this show the transits of a whole timer. And that is the talk. Well, that was the subject of my talk yesterday also.
You know, I'm very fascinated by the word transit, and now that you've mentioned it, it seems appropriate to ask you. You call the catalogue Transits of a Whole Timer, and then you've done a book on Zarina Hashmi, which you call Radiant Transits. Now, transit is a very wonderfully ambivalent word. It lends itself to many ways of looking at this word. What exactly does this word mean to you?
I retain all the ambiguity and all the possibilities that transit brings to the phrase. In both cases, what interested me was the dynamic of their dynamic between the contrasts of their being and their lives. You know, for example, in my father's case, it was the journey from being an adolescent to a man. It was the journey of traveling the distance between colonial rule and free India. It was the journey of what is the word of mutating from a political full-time political activist to a full-time painter. So it was this journey between various different worlds. And it was also my personal journey in my father's case, because interestingly, the year he resigns from the Communist Party of India and decides to join the art school rather late in life was the year that I was born. So these 20 years The first 20 years of my life were also the years that Swaminathan was, making all these journeys in life and in places.
But I think the journey never stopped. Having experienced this wonderful person called Swaminathan, even when he was in Bharat Bhavan, he was painting with a certain amount of intensity, and you could see a change coming in by the new experiences. But he also set up this absolutely incredible folk and tribal center for the Bharat Bhavan complex, where he toured the length and breadth of Madhya Pradesh, especially the tribal belt, and he picked up the most amazing images and artwork, and how he placed it side by side with contemporary work. I think that was a very amazing notion that he put forth, that why is this considered postmodern or modern, and why is a work by someone working in Bastar, who seemed to have a resonance in the work of Paul Klee, be not put on a parallel platform. He was also an institution builder, he was a great storyteller, he was a wonderful thinker. So I think he combined in him so many different dimensions of what I would call a Renaissance man, that it was really something quite special.
You have touched on a concern that became very central to his life. In 68, he first got a chance to study folk and tribal arts of India under the Nehru Fellowship. He was one of the first Nehru Fellows. And at that time, he studied Bastar, Kinnaur, and Kutch. And artists like Jyoti Bhatt and Jairam Patel actually toured with him in Kutch. And right from that time, he in fact within a year he writes a note to Mrs. Indira Gandhi telling her that the fate of the tribal and pastoral peoples in India is not secure, and that the government should make efforts, otherwise there will be trouble. He could see the rise of Maoism, for example, in our tribal states. He told Mrs. Gandhi that from Nagaland to Maharashtra, we have an unbroken tribal belt, and if urban India keeps exploiting the tribal India for its resources, Srikakulam and Naxalbari were early warnings, and this could become a raging forest fire. But unfortunately, modern India did not hear the voices of Swaminathan and other cultural and social anthropologists.
Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to hear the voices of reason and compassion and humanity, which is what embodied.
That is why the making of Bharat Bhavan was one effort in that direction. He wanted to assert the fact that these children of nature are not only equal citizens, but they are as important artistically and culturally as any urban artist is or would be. And it is interesting that modernism itself, I mean, we know that Cubism, for example, Picasso studied African masks to arrive at Cubism, and he said that becomes great art. And the African masks remain as folk art. I mean, why are you being so patronizing to them?
No, I fully agree with you, because I saw it in action.
In practice.
I saw culture in progress and in process when he invited artists from the interiors of Madhya Pradesh, and he gave them canvases and paints, because he wanted that their work should not have the ephemerality of the material that they used. So I saw his immense compassion, his huge heart, which really came from understanding the different layers and complexity that makes India such a rich kind of country, which unfortunately urbanization is trying to erase. Kalidas, I'm also interested in your own life. You have also achieved some tremendous strides in what you have done, and you are a worthy son of a very worthy father. You worked with Mallikarjun Mansoor.
Yes, my training was in classical music.
Yes, in classical music. I remember the time when I first met you, you were working with Amjad Khan.
Yeah.
So you've had two very rich musical traditions to dip into, which certainly must have enriched your own understanding of the visual arts. Because in India we see
it was
things...
interesting growing up because I had this father who had been a Marxist and who was very much a modernist. But my grandfather was a Sanskritist and a classicist.
Wow.
So I guess I was exposed to both a sense of classical arts and Sanskrit and so on, and in my father, modern European thinking and literature and so on. And in the beginning, I didn't even try to reconcile these worlds. They were separate worlds. But as one grows up in life, and I suppose that
they all collapse into one
another.
It
collapses into one.
There are slippages and leaks
exactly.
that happen. But I'm very interested because I always feel that
actually that Bhopal experience was the experience where all these worlds collapsed.
Yes.
And I think it was the extraordinary genius of Ashok Vajpeyi and you who were there, where all these worlds from theatre to classical music
and Swami would design sets for Midsummer's Night's Dream,
directed by
B.V. Karant.
B.V. Karant, yes.
Benevolence.
And Benevolence. And it was quite wonderful those years.
No, I think Ashok had that understanding of the arts as not being in little silos, but how they kind of overlap and interact. And do you feel that integration within you when you view works of art, your background of music, your background of Sanskrit, and my God, you're quite linguistic as well, knowing Bengali and Tamil and Urdu and Hindi and English, of course. But Bengali is a bit of an intriguing language for somebody who's a Tamil but grew up in Delhi, had roots in Simla. Because I remember Swami talking about his schooling in Simla.
He was born in Simla.
He was born in Simla.
In fact, my grandfather was one of the first South Indians to come and settle in North India. He came as early as 1910.
How did he come from?
Well, he was a lawyer in the Madras High Court and he lost cases and he decided practicing law was not his thing, so he joined the government of India. And the British government posted him in Delhi and Simla because Delhi was getting built. 1911 they started. And so from 1911 till 1972 when he died, he lived in Delhi and Simla. The summers were spent in Simla and the winters in Delhi.
Wow. What an ideal life.
And there were also people like Ram Kumar and Nirmal Verma, whose father was also in the government, and they too studied in the same school, and Nirmal and my father remained lifelong friends. And again, they were together in Bhopal.
Thanks to Ashok, you know. He has this wonderful capacity to get people together.
And they were in Czechoslovakia and Poland in the 50s, thanks to their communist background. So, yes, it has been a long journey. And the family histories told us of the undivided Punjab, for example. My father's aunt was in Lahore. And so there was constant travel between Delhi, Lahore and Simla. It was a kind of a triangle.
I think this was prior to the division of India on regional linguistic basis.
And the division of the country itself.
And the division of the country, of course.
And after partition, my father's aunt came to Amritsar and she died, retired from Simla, and she died in Bhopal. So there again is a transit, you know, a transit between colonial cities and transit between cities of independent India, and that fascinates me.
But transit in its very pragmatic usage means a kind of no man's land.
You know, ultimately we were Tamils in Punjab heartland, and that perhaps gave us the position where we could flower in this wonderful, fertile area between Delhi and Lahore, and we never went back for 3 generations.
I think the best food I've eaten in my life, and I still have a feeling and taste memory of that, was your mother's cooking. She was from
She was
the
not a
hills.
South Indian. She was from the hills. She was from, and interestingly enough, she was not from Himachal, or she was from actually Almora, from
Yes.
Kumaon. And my father had spotted her at a public rally in the first general elections when he was
So
a
they were politically in the same.
Well, she was
thinking
really not
space.
politically active, but her brother had been active in the left movement in India during independence. He was a sympathizer of the Communist Party of India. And during the first general election, she just happened to attend a political rally where my father was giving a speech. And that's how he spotted her.
Oh, and she was such a beauty. So I can imagine her shining in that crowd. Tell me, do you have any memory of that defining moment when your father got disillusioned with communism? Because he spoke a lot about it.
He spoke a lot about it. The moment started actually the year of my birth, which was the year of the Hungarian uprising. And Imre Nagy, who was the Hungarian leader, was imprisoned and killed, and so he resigned from the Communist Party because he could see the totalitarian nature of the communist regime. And he writes, and he used to tell us also, that he had been a Congress socialist with Jayaprakash Narayan and Aruna Asaf Ali before independence. And he knew of the crimes of humanity that Stalinist Russia had committed. But as he says, he went into the Communist Party around 1948, believing that the day of the Congress was over, and Gandhiji had already asked for the Congress to be disbanded. But the Indian Revolution was incomplete, and the Communist Party in India, these young people thought they could change it.
World.
But after the Hungarian uprising and the way it was crushed by Stalin, he resigned from the party. But his links with left intellectual magazines and newspapers continued for another 10 years, till 68 actually, when the Czechoslovak suppression takes place, Prague Spring of Dubčeky. That got crushed, and that was the final straw. And that I remember because I was already 12 years by that time. And he resigned from the Hindi Patriot, which was being run by Aruna Asaf Ali in Delhi. And it was also hard times because art did not sell. There was very little market for art, and he had no job, and for a year we had to be withdrawn from school. And his aunt used to send us 100 rupees from her pension, to augment my father's income. But very soon, by the end of 68, he got the Nehru Fellowship, and that put him again in limelight, and things improved.
But how did you take that, being withdrawn from school for a year?
We had fun.
It didn't traumatize you?
No.
You're not nurturing
a
sense of betrayal by parents who are supposed to look after you? Well, you're a good son. Now tell me, you have also written a book on Subodh Gupta. You've also, and another very interesting title to contain and to expand, which seems to fit in with the kind of poetic metaphors that you've been using in all your titles. Then you've written also a book on Begum Akhtar.
Yes.
So how did that happen? These are little patches of your life which I wasn't familiar with, having known you all my life.
I made a film on Begum Akhtar.
Yes, I believe so.
And
did this happen after she passed away?
Yeah, 20 years after
20 years. And how do you manage to get archival material, string it together? Quite a mammoth
in the
task.
case of Begum Akhtar, it was interesting because it started off as a journalistic assignment. I was heading the social and cultural news section of a news channel. Actually, Malvika Singh's Business India Television.
Right.
And the 20th anniversary of Begum Akhtar's death came by, and I thought it would be a routine news story, a release of a postage stamp.
Yeah.
And Malika Pukhraj had come to Delhi to release that postage stamp. So I was interviewing her, and the interview continued for something like an hour and a half, where the channel probably used 3 minutes. And I saw the possibility of recreating Begum Akhtar's life through people she had known closely. So Sheila Dhar was alive at that time, and Malika Pukhraj was there. Rita Ganguly was there. And so my film on Begum Akhtar is a series of interviews remembering Begum Akhtar. In fact, I call the film Hai Akhtari Begum Akhtar Ki Yaad Mein. So, and interspersed with archival footage, because there were already 2 films division films shot on Begum Akhtar during her lifetime in television recordings. And when I was editing the film, Shabana Azmi happened to come to the studio, and she was so excited by it that she said that please give me a copy of this. So I said, but the final cut has not been made, you know, I mean, we are still working with this thing. And so when it was done, I sent her the film, and Javed Akhtar got very excited. He showed it to Sham Benegal, who congratulated me, and the film...
Sardari Begum.
No, and that after seeing my film, Sham started working on Sardari Begum. Sardari Begum.
So you were the inspiration.
And they both came to my screening in Bombay, and they were very generous with
So what has happened to this film?
It's lying in cans.
That's the tragedy, you know.
But so I converted it into a book.
Well,
you know,
that was smart because you have the gift with words and you could manage to do that. But it is unfortunate that so many wonderful films about our legends have been documented, but they seem to be languishing somewhere in the bowels of the archival section. I think if they could be aired and the younger generation would be aware of this rich legacy that they have inherited, it would be such a wonderful thing. Thank you so much.
Pleasure being here. Thank you.
Kalidas, I can't believe that we are together sharing some thoughts and memories of a person I loved and a person who was your father.
Thank you.
Thank you.